here's Dalí. He's ready to go off to school, and he goes to Madrid to study in the art academy. There's his ID card, and he lives in a hall of residence, the residency of the students' residence, Residencia de Estudiantes, which is not just a dorm for the School of Fine Arts, but is a kind of residence hall for people studying in various different institutions around Madrid. And so he meets, they were modeled on the sort of Oxford and Cambridge colleges, basically. There's a sort of modern idea of education, that students from different disciplines should all live together in the same place. So there he meets various people. Here's an early self-portrait. So in a sense, self-portraiture is part of this self-mythology drift I'm trying to get at. And when he goes off to Madrid with his long hair in the kind of late 19th century style, not quite in sync yet with the 1920s fashions, he meets two other students in the residencia who are living there. One is on the right is Luis Buñuel, the filmmaker, or who would become a filmmaker at this stage. He's not done anything. He's from Aragon, from more or less Zaragoza. And on the left, the poet Federico Garcia Lorca, who had already done some things by this stage of the game, and who was from Granada in Andalusia in the south of Spain. Many say that the title of Buñuel's film, The Andalusian Dog, is a kind of ironic reference obliquely to Lorca and the fact that he was Andalusian. Apparently Lorca didn't like this idea very much. Anyway. So the kind of things that Dalí did in the early 20s were very experimental. He was looking abroad to French art. He was aware of movements like Cubism. But again, in this one, he's inscribing himself into this new pictorial language, but he's still sticking with this idea of the self as the sort of center of the image. And you can see his face embedded within the fragmentation of the Cubist multiple points of view. He's got the newspaper in his hand, which is La Publicitat, one of the Barcelona newspapers. And he's still got this long hair. So he hasn't yet, eventually he cuts his hair to the style of the 1920s. And apart from his various experimentations of this period, he also did some more somewhat classical things like this painting, Girl's Back, which is actually his sister's standing in for the model. And these reflect not only a curiosity with the old masters that he could have seen while he was in Madrid, by going to the Prado and other institutions, but a real curiosity about the nature of photography. So they're both very modern and very kind of classical at the same time. But he was very interested in what he called the objectivity of the camera. And this friendship with Buñuel and Lorca was very fertile from the point of view of creativity. Lots of ideas kicking back and forth, correspondence with them, and Lorca writes a poem dedicated to Dalí. You know, to some degree, these new friends become sort of substitute father figures as the young Dalí is kind of throwing off the familial father. We'll get onto the father in a minute. Here's a self-portrait, which is sort of fragmented, split into two, which might be a kind of simultaneous representation of Lorca and Dalí. Maybe the central shadowy figure being Dalí. There's another possible alternate father figure in this work and in the related works in this series, which is Picasso, who really was old enough to be Dalí's father. These are stylistically related to Picasso's works of a year or two before.